Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys and gals a little bit about a quote Lee Haney used to say, many time Mr. Olympia winner. And in a lot of ways it matches powerlifting. There's a line Louis Simmons used to say that was, get the most out of the weights, don't let the weights get the most out of you. And Lee Haney used to say, stimulate, don't annihilate. And there's a lot to all of this. So when we say this stuff, here's what I'm trying to tell people. They're all really talking about the concept of stimulus versus fatigue. That's a more modern concept we've seen come out in the lifting world from evidence-based circles, stimulus versus fatigue. But really, these guys are saying the same thing. So these people, before we had a little bit of the fancy science saying this, weren't they telling you the same thing? These guys who learned in the trenches, who are successful. You know, Louis Simmons coached 100 world record holders. Lee Haney won a whole bunch of Mr. Olympias, right? Here's what he meant by stimulate, don't annihilate. He's telling you come in, get a good workout in, but don't just absolutely destroy a muscle. What do you mean by destroy? It doesn't mean don't train hard. He means train hard. But you need to be looking at stimulus. It's like you need to look at every set and go, all right, yeah, I should train hard, but I need to be looking at this set and going, am I stimulating the muscle? Am I getting growth out of it? Am I getting an adaptation? Am I taking this muscle and hitting all the available muscle fibers? Am I working this muscle as completely as I can? Am I working this movement pattern as completely as I can? Am I getting something out of it? You know, because it could be even a movement pattern you want neural drive out of. So if that's what you're doing, so you're going really heavy, well, the same idea. You may not be trying to necessarily get optimal muscle stimulus, but you are sure trying to get all those upper threshold motor units firing at the angles you want. When you're going real heavy, you're trying to get that skill. Okay, idea is the same. So when you're looking at it, it's going, is this set causing muscle growth, or am I reaching a point where I'm just beating a muscle up for nothing? I'll give you an example. Doing a triple drop set on 3 sets in a row, okay? Anyone think you're growing from that, or are you just annihilating a muscle? People say, well, you're getting all the stimulus. No, you're not. Okay, because let's say, so let's set aside the big movements, because you're not doing this on back squats. Shut up. Don't even tell me you are. You're not repping 405 on a back squat, dropping down to 3 plates and taking it to failure and having a spotter help you lift it, and then stripping down to 2 plates and taking it to failure and then stripping down to 1 plate. You're not doing it. And you're not doing it 3 sets in a row, so shut up. So we're going to talk about a dumbbell curl. Right? You started with the 35s, you took them to failure, went down to 30s, did a couple more reps, dropped to a 20. Okay? People are like, well, am I getting more muscle fibers? I wouldn't be able to do more reps. No, you're not getting any new muscle fibers. You're just not. Like we know how muscles work. When you reached failure with those 35s, the upper threshold muscle fibers, the ones that really get the most growth for non-novices, right? Once you've been lifting a few years, all those intermediate fibers are not really growing. You're really only growing those deeper muscle fibers. That's where all of your growth is coming from. That's why you grow slower the longer you train, by the way. For those who are curious, because when you first start out, even some of your slow twitch fibers will grow. Even the first year, a bunch of those intermediate fibers, they're still growing. Every year you train less and less of them, they just start maxing out. Then you get to where only the deeper muscle fibers grow. And they have an unlimited growth potential. That's why you can keep making gains for 10 or 15 years. You can still gain a little bit every year. It may not be much anymore, but you'll gain something if you train hard enough and you recover, right? You'll still make gains. It's pretty much an open-ended thing. Dudes make gains for 15, 20 years sometimes. Granted, it's not normal, but it does happen if you're consistent enough. And you're dialed in, because you've got to be dialed in, because the only thing that's growing are those certain muscle fibers. That's it. Nothing else is growing anymore. So when you start looking at, say, these triple drop sets, you've already fatigued those fibers. They're not re-engaging again for at least 2 or 3 minutes. You're not recruiting them again. It's not going to happen. So when you drop down to the 30 and you get a couple more reps, you're getting just the intermediate fibers. And then once those fatigue, you have to drop down to the 20s. You're pretty much with endurance fibers, okay? You're now pretty much with the fibers that are just using a warm-up set. You're not stimulating anything. We could debate if that first drop is stimulating anything. In some cases, it might. May not be much, and for a lot of people, it won't be any. But by the time you get down to that 20-pound dumbbell, you're not stimulating anything. All you are doing is causing muscle damage. All you're doing is creating fatigue. You're not gaining anything. That's what Lee Haney meant by annihilating. Now, was the first set to failure? Right? The first set to failure? That gained something. Every last rep probably gained a little bit more. The failed rep we could debate if the rep you actually missed caused any muscle growth, subject to debate. The rep before it, 100% chance did. Caused more growth than the 2 reps before. Every single time. Yeah, absolutely. But that's when you're fresh. So what happens later in the workout when you're so tired you're not able to perform? Now you're just beating yourself up. In other words, we get stimulus on sets that are high quality still, right? But when you start losing 5, 6, 7 reps because you're so fatigued. So in other words, if you can curl 100 pounds for 10 reps fresh and you can only do it for 4 after you've done all your other work, you're probably not gaining much. You're just beating yourself into the ground. You're no longer able to replicate performance. So when we have to significantly reduce the weight on the bar or the reps later in a workout versus if we had done that same exercise fresh, we're annihilating. You're just not stimulating much of anything. The highest threshold motor units are not recovering. You're not hitting the deep muscle fibers anymore. They're not activating. They have not had enough recovery time. Maybe had you taken longer breaks in the workout, maybe got some other stuff, were you in better conditioning? Sure, but you're not. So at that point, you're just beating yourself into the ground. Or you're up here just doing crazy cheat reps because you can't move the weight. Yeah, you're just beating yourself up. Now, I'm not saying some cheat curls and some cheat rows don't have their place. It absolutely can. But if that's the only way that you're moving weight later, we're getting into a point where you're probably just beating yourself up. First exercise, sometimes like a cheat row early in, and then you do maybe some strict dumbbell rows or machine work or lat pull down. Sure. Early in the workout, maybe, but if you're having to cheat at all later in there, no, you're just not there, right? It's just not happening. So you're just beating yourself into the ground at that point, and that's what he means. You need to get in and make sure that your workouts are stimulating new muscle growth, not just junk volume or beating yourself up with weights you can't handle, trying to get a little bit more. Okay, that's what he means by annihilating. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.